Hello and welcome to a potential guide on killing 3's Hell on Earth. As a heads up, this is what worked the best for me while playing Hell on Earth solo and will most likely change as more guns and attachments are added to the game. The information I give is primarily from what I've experienced and has been consistent in beating Hell on Earth. Depending on how well this video does, I will do my best on doing a more in-depth guide to each perks, but for now, I will show the current builds I use for each perk and main weapons and purchases I go for. This guide will go through some mechanics of Hell on Earth, strategy, threats, and an overview on how I run Hell on Earth. Starting off with the main topic of this video, Hell on Earth. Hell on Earth is very similar to the previous iterations of Killing Floor 1 and 2, with increased spawns, less dodge per kill, Zeds doing more damage and being more aggressive, faster, and running right at you when they spawn in comparison to hard. Killing Floor 3 follows the same formula. Through my runs, I found that Hell on Earth takes roughly 25 to 40 minutes, depending on how efficient the wave clears are and potential mutations, while hard difficulty takes 20 minutes max upon clearing. You must be asking, why do you want to run Hell on Earth? Isn't it meant for perks that are close to being level 30? Well, upon seeing Hell on Earth, it does sound like it's meant for higher level perks, ranging from level 25 to 30, but it's more of a recommendation. The XP gain on Hell on Earth is well worth the challenge, and having more Zeds in general will increase material drops for attachment upgrades. You might also be wondering, why run Hell on Earth instead of hard, since it is easier and faster to level up. The EXP gain on hard is an estimate of 1,500 XP to almost 2,000 XP with inclusion of other factors like daily and weekly assignments. Each assignment can give out 100 XP for dailies or 250 XP for weeklies. Hell on Earth, on the other hand, is doubled. 3,000 XP in terms of time, as well as more perk proficiency gained upon completing the match, which is 139 up to 150 proficiency points. Moving on to strategy. This is short and sweet. Your saving grace on Hell on Earth has always been kiting and knowing choke points, where you will get the most out of your perk, gadget, and guns, which are the key for a successful run. Doing a holdout in one spot is possible, but it can only last for so long. Having an escape route like a zipline nearby will always be handy. Some perk gadgets are good for getting out of tight spots. For instance, the Engineer's initial activation knockdown, Firebug's gadget knockdown and fire AoE, and Medic's sanctuary bubble and initial activation. As mentioned before, upon spawning, Zed will immediately start running towards you, or can be considered enraged. I've had a couple of runs where I stood my ground and ended up being overwhelmed, either losing the match right off the bat, or using up syringes and losing a huge chunk of armor. Always start your kiting route, even if it's just a few Zeds lingering around at the start. Never underestimate the weaker Zeds when they spawn. My main tool I use is the multi-tool, to activate turrets along my kiting route, as well as opening armor crates. I tend to start off with this tool, as later on it will be difficult to use in later waves. I believe on Hell on Earth that you get less refills on your tools as well. For instance, the multi-tool has 9 refills. Another important strategy in Killing Floor 3 is map knowledge. Map knowledge is also important to know where spawns are and breakable walls where bigger Zeds can spawn. Making an efficient kiting route that will either have Zeds drop down or climb up will help the most. But for me, I find that having the Zeds drop down makes it more efficient. Some maps like Office, Sewers, Convoy, or City Streets, for example, have drops or climbable spots that can be helpful in slowing the Zeds down. In terms of map, from easiest to hardest, in my opinion, are City Streets, Convoy, Office, Sewers, Radar Station, Army Depot, then R&D Labs. Usually aim for long hallways or doorways to have them all allocate in one spot. Knowing or creating these choke points where you can dwindle the numbers safely and efficiently will help a lot. Even weakening the bigger Zeds. Knowing where armor crates, traps, and turrets are always handy solo, as they will still give out dash upon kills, and it's free damage once activated. Save ammo, more dash. Moving on to the Zeds. Sis, Clots, Gorefast, Bloats, and Crawlers are not high threats. The only exception would be if they spawn in a group right in front of you during your route. Husks are what I would consider a medium threat due to the range and dot damage they can do. Their fire can block your route, so you would have to commit to taking fire damage. The Husk's attacks can range from mortar fire, a direct fire blast, or an AoE fire spin. The mortar and direct fire blasts are when they are at long range and can be simply dodged by simply dashing to the left or right, while the AoE fire spin is if you're close to them, preventing them from charging their cannon. They are considered medium due to the fact that their weak spot is their backpack, which will instantly kill them and do AoE damage to Zeds around it. The only real threat from them is if the Helmet Fire mutation is active, where they can have increased spawns and increased fire damage, so expect all hell to break loose. Moving on to Flesh Pounds. They are high threats, but in my honest opinion, they're not as bad as the last two. I would prefer the Pounded mutation more than Slice and Dice due to the fact that Flesh Pounds mechanics are still the same from Killing Floor 1 and 2. They still become enraged when taking damage and still are bullet sponges, but the core on their chest can be destroyed to prevent them from being enraged throughout the entire wave. If a Flesh Pound doesn't hit anyone for a few seconds while enraged, they will go back to their calm state. The Flesh Pound still has its speed to catch up to you, still does big damage, and now has a range attack, which again, can be simply avoided by a sidestep. Other than that, the Flesh Pound is still weak to Force, Sound Wave, which is explosive, and now electric damage. Moving on to the last two high threats. From my personal experience, always be mindful when a Scrake and a Siren spawn. I highly recommend that if a Siren spawns in front of you, always try to take her out without stopping. The Siren has two abilities, her original AoE Scream and her range attack. Her range attack can be countered by simply being behind something as she has a chance to stop using it, or you can block it for reduced damage. While her AoE Scream is slightly different from her KF1 and KF2 ability, the AoE is now a solid force field, meaning you can't move through it like before, and any projectile, even bullets, will be useless when she screams. It protects any Zeds within its range, so it's best to leave her be if she does it. Both of the Siren's abilities can push you slightly when you get hit or in the AoE. This AoE has a special animation where her neck extends upwards. When seeing that up close, you can simply bash her out of it to prevent the AoE. The same applies to her range attack as well if you are close enough. Sirens also have a tendency to spawn in front of or in the back of the horde. Their movement is slow and sluggish, but can be a surprise if you kite too fast, making them reroute to walk in front of you instead. When alone, Sirens aren't as bad, but when paired up with a Scrake grab, there's a high chance that you'll get down depending on what ability the Siren decides to use. Scrakes, on the other hand, are the most dangerous in my opinion. With their claw grab, they will always be in front of the horde to grab you. The best way is to always look behind you to see if the Scrake is in the process of using their claw grab and simply dash sideways. There will always be a faint sound before he actually does his claw grab, so be mindful of that. I avoid execution mid-wave, as during them, Zeds will surround you, and if a bloat or Starman uses their ability mid-execution, their damage will apply after the execution finishes. As I mentioned, I won't go into details on the perks in this video, but I want to focus more on weapons and attachments. With attachments being new to the series, we can start on discussing what makes an attachment quote-unquote good. When modding your weapons, attachments are always a must-have on your weapons, and upgrading said attachments will give a passive upon reaching tier 3, purple tier. To make it more genuine, I did not focus on certain tier 3 passives currently and only focused on the stat boost that the attachments gave. Weapons with attachments will have a slightly increased cost range from 170 dodge to close to 700 dodge. Keep this in mind as dodge per kills are lesser on Hell on Earth, meaning each wave you will have less dodge to spend on your weapons that you upgraded. So having more attachments on your tier 3 to 4 gun can cost up to 5,000 or more dodge. Upgrading the tier of attachments does not increase the cost to the weapon. It's the addition of the attachment that increases it. As new information came out, the majority of attachments and mods are having their cost reduced when the rearmament update goes live on October 31st. For me, my rule of thumb when it comes to Hell on Earth and in general is to have one of each ammo type on every weapon. The ammo types in game are Acid, Biological, Freeze, Force, Soundwave, Fire, Electric, Ballistic, and Cut. Acid, Fire, Biological, and Cut have damage over time, or dot. Freeze and Electric can cause stun, or freeze. Soundwave, Force, Cut can cause stumble. Out of these ammo types, I find myself using Biological, Acid, and Force the most. To be a bit more in-depth, my Acid focuses on armor and Zed Tech, which Husks, Sirens, Fleshpounds, Scrakes, Impaler have, while Biological focuses on Flesh type that can also cause Enfeeble on all Zeds. In case you don't know, Enfeeble weakens and slows Zeds down, which is great in creating distance. Force and Ballistic is an all-around damage type, with only one boss being resistant to, which is Queen Crawler. To know, when an ammo type has two types of damage, the primary damage will always be priority. Hence why I would consider Queen Crawler resistant to force/ballistic, since armor-piercing rounds have force and ballistic damage types. Besides ammo types, I primarily only focus on one other weapon attachment, and that is the ones that increase damage on some weapons, which are the receivers. Usually the heavy receivers increase damage and recoil, but the percent increase is a must if you want to conserve ammo as much as possible. The percent increase applies to the base stat of the weapon, which is great when paired with force, damage, and ballistic. For example, my primary weapon loadout after Wave 2 focuses more on either the Artemis Marksman Rifle or the G33. Given that depending on the mutation or perk on Wave 2 will determine what I will run from Wave 2 to 4 or maybe 5, as I don't pick up a secondary primary until Wave 4 or 5. But why the Artemis or the G33? Well, the G33 has good damage in AoE with all of its ammo types. More chances to cause dot. I use the G33 with biological/force damage smoke grenade, not to confuse it with the confusion grenade. The main reason is that the smoke grenade variant does not cause self-damage, and the addition of enfeeble and damage over time, it's highly effective against destroying Scrake's claws, preventing them from grabbing you. While the Artemis is a good primary to have with good ammo capacity and consistent damage, pairing it with perk skills that increase stumble is highly recommended, as one shot can stumble Scrakes and flesh pounds that are enraged. Great for kiting. I keep either of these two weapons until wave of 4 or 5, where I can purchase a secondary primary: the Ifrit for the Firebug and Engineer, Scar for Commando, Sharpshooter, Ninja, Medic, keep the Artemis for the Medic or Sharpshooter, a Cut Bonebreaker Ninja primarily for self-healing, or simply swapping out a biological G33 for the acid one. After that crash course on Hell on Earth, weapons, and attachments, upon starting the match, you are welcome with the loadout lobby. I sometimes focus on getting blue armor first, or sometimes get a beefy primary. This can vary depending on the starter weapons. I always switch out the starting tool for the multi-tool to have turrets and armor crates opened early on. For instance, for Commando, I sometimes get green armor and a modded Wraith, while other perks like Engineer, I go for blue armor and keep the base CSG. Armor and weapons are more dependent on what you find necessary for your playstyle or needs, as you can sell the upgraded weapon after Wave 1 to get slightly more dodge, or get upgraded armor for more survivability and worry less about upgrading armor mid-match. Always remember to use as much of the operation budget, as the money will not carry over to the actual match. Starting off with Wave 1, it's simple. Gorefast, Sirens, Husks, Sis, Bloats, and Clots spawn. Use Wave 1 with the multi-tool to set up turrets, armor crates, or zip lines. Start your kiting route and finish the wave. Hopefully you don't need to repair armor too much or use syringes during the first wave. Prioritize armor repair, ammo, syringe, and grenades first before buying refills on tools. At the trader, keep in mind that Scrakes spawn on Wave 2, and it's usually 3 of them solo. Purchasing a force or ballistic Artemis will carry majority of the waves 2 to 4 and maybe 5, depending on the perk. G33 with biological damage will help with crowd control and passively deal with weaker Zeds, Gorefast, Sis, Clots, Sirens. If a mutation happens, and hope it's Acidic Assault, Artemis will mow through the wave quickly. If not, I would highly recommend the Artemis, as if it's possible to one-shot Husk tanks without the mutation. G33 is more for the Commando, as the impact shot and non-self damage from the smoke grenades will clear waves faster while clearing Husks and Sirens quickly. One Scrake tends to spawn first, and then the last 2 near the end of the wave. Keep in mind that biological damage does help remove the Scrake's claw through dot. Moving on to waves 3 to 5, I tend to hold out spending on a secondary primary. Rather, just refill and upgrade to purple tier armor by wave 3. Refill ammo, syringe, grenades, and multi-tools. Wave 3 is when flesh pounds begin to spawn, so keep in mind how much ammo you're using, and if you use up all of your ammo, remember, you can refill partially at the trader mid-wave. Keep kiting the same way and activate turrets and open up the remaining armor lockers. After wave 4, I sometimes tend to swap out the Artemis or G33 for the final weapons. By wave 5, there is a high chance of getting Slice and Dice or Pounded Mutation. These can either make or break your run, as if you're not well prepared, this may steamroll you near the end. Slice and Dice has increased shock trap duration with increased Scrake spawns, while Pounded has electric damage increase and faster gadget recharge with increased Flesh Pound spawns. Scrakes are considered flesh Zeds, so running cut, ballistic, fire will work on them, while force, sound wave, and electric damage are effective against Flesh Pounds. Acid and Bio are also good to have to help slow down the two big Zeds. Acid is more on the damage, while Bio applies the slow. In terms of boss wave, I try to cover all three bosses' weaknesses. Chimera and Impaler share the same weakness type, which is force damage, while Queen Crawler is the outlier with a fire weakness. This predicament can be alleviated since the Ifrit has fire and electric. Electric is also effective against the Impaler while covering Queen Crawler's weakness. Then you can have a force/ballistic ammo type primarily to cover Chimera and Impaler. Bosses are just the same, kite them until phase 2, and if I were to rank the bosses from easiest to hardest, my list would be Impaler, Chimera, and Queen Crawler being the hardest. With the Impaler and Chimera, they both share one weakness, which is force. Starting off with the Impaler's phase 1, in my opinion is the easiest boss to solo as he is just a more beefed up Flesh Pound in all honesty. Critical spots are his arms, face, and back. Primarily the glowing bits, shooting and destroying those spots prevents the Impaler from shooting rockets, his arms, or using smoke screen, his back. Kiting him normally and making use of turrets and shock traps will help phase 1 move along faster. His attacks are primarily close quarters with his blade head being similar to Flesh Pound's attacks. Once you start the Impaler's phase 2, he tends to keep his distance using rockets, smoke screens, and he becomes more aggressive. Not much to really deal with, simply hear the audio cue when he launches his rockets and gets behind something or a corner. He becomes stationary when using rockets, so keep that in mind. You can stun the Impaler with shock damage or with the ninja's gadget as well. Force and shock damage are effective against him. With more than 4 people in a lobby, 3 Impalers will spawn. The key is to separate all 3 into your own groups and try not to cross each other, as sometimes the Impaler will move to another route by chance. Communication is key for this boss. It is best to split evenly if possible, but it's doable. Moving on to this second boss, which is the Chimera. The Chimera's phase 1 is similar to the Impaler's phase 1, where you are more focused on kiting the Chimera. During this phase, it focuses on melee while also having some special attacks like ground slamming and even becoming stationary if you're close enough to do an AoE spike attack. It is fairly armored and its weak spot is fairly easy to hit, but when it does any sort of attack like his ground slam or his spike, it tends to open up the weak spot. During this phase, Myers will spawn randomly. Once you hit his Chimera's phase 2, he teleports and is much faster. He can spawn Mire from orbs he shoots out, which can cause dot on initial impact on the floor. Myers will spawn where the orbs hit the ground. To counter this, you can shoot his Mire orbs mid-air to prevent more Mire to spawn, and prevent dot from them if you step on them. He also has a Siren-esque AoE that causes an EMP effect that prevents you from using your gadget for a little bit. Doesn't do that much damage, but you can cancel him out of it if you hit his critical spot, or stumble, or even do enough damage. Similar to the Impaler, but can be a surprise when he teleports closer to you. Freeze and force damage is effective against the Chimera. Moving on to the last boss, which is Queen Crawler. Queen Crawler's phase 1 is different in comparison to the previous bosses I've mentioned. She starts off with the long range attacks, where her abdomen or sack will launch Mire traps that will slow you if you are caught in it or walk near it. These can be destroyed once they are placed on the ground, but cannot be destroyed mid-air in comparison to the Chimera's Mire orbs. There is no real pattern to these Mire traps, as some will stack on top of each other once landing near you. In general, she only really aims towards your direction and primarily behind you or directly in front of you. Her main damage is melee, so she will always try to close the gap by using her Mire traps or even rushing towards you. Kiting is key to avoid as much damage from her as possible. Moving on to her phase 2, which can be the most annoying since she can now create portals that goes into and randomly launches at you from a portal. Her first portal will always spawn baby crawlers. With more people in a lobby, the portals will become unpredictable. This phase isn't too bad, but can drag on a bit. She roughly goes into the portals 4 times. You can simply sidestep, vaulting over a railing, drop down to avoid getting hit, as her dash attack from the portal will prevent her from moving past drops or getting caught on the railings. If she leaves her Mire traps from phase 1 on the map, it's best to clear them out as the slow can be an issue, or you can change your route to simply avoid that area in general to save ammo. whose most notable weakness is fire but is resistant to force damage. Long live the Queen. With all that information, that should be most of the things I wanted to cover in this video. Hell on Earth and what seemed to be the most effective for solo players. Hell on Earth difficulty feels faster paced than hard and can be a bit of a learning curve, but once you find something that creates consistent outcomes, it becomes effective. Once new updates, new bosses, new Zeds, or enemies come out, this might get outdated. I plan on doing more testing on other perk skills and how they fare on Hell on Earth. Hopefully this crash course to Hell on Earth was helpful and that I covered mostly everything I mentioned.
They're called chips. French fries? What the fuck does that mean?